would be much more interesting to see your reaction to this material, to see how historically all this is being built in terms of advertising, but also in terms of how the politics functioning. You know, since, I think through these 60 years, we see that the parallel way of how politics are functioning as an advertising. And I think to try to sell the politicians as products is the same way how, you know, then. And of course, we could see that the negative campaigns, the dirty campaigns is getting more and more. And I think it's, maybe it's interesting, your comments. I think it's much more interesting the comment for me, you know. I already did my work.
I was going to ask a question, but I'll make a comment first, okay? I was really surprised to see over the years how much the idea of get America working again. Like when I think of that as kind of a contemporary theme because of recent recessions, but it was really a theme throughout almost the whole time. And I thought that surprised me, I guess. But I have a question. When you re-edit this, do you go back and re-edit some of the older ones? Like, for instance, you know, John Edwards and his, you know, troubles. But there was an older ad from John Edwards with his wife, you know, so is that something that you added recently based on what happened now, even though that was a couple of campaigns ago?
Well, we eliminate some of the ads of the previous campaign. Like that, obviously the last campaign is the longer, and 2008 we eliminate certain things to don't be too extenuous. I think it's we keep the idea of the primaries in every because I think a lot of the candidates disappear. We don't know if it could be better or if it could be interesting, you know. It's some certain kind of appearance that look like a kind of a cameo appearance. And we don't know what happened. Like that, I think it's good to keep it the primaries as a kind of reminding some of the situations. So.
I mostly just have a comment that it was interesting to see this last series of campaign ads because in New York they totally ignore us. So I don't think I have seen any of those. We get overloaded with the local ads, which have a lot of the same tone. Many of them do, but it was just interesting to see the national ads because they don't care about New York, so they don't spend any money here.
There's another question over here.
I have a question about
Wait, when the mic is going to come to you.
the data that you presented for the 50s was quite limited. Was that a result of the sort of unidimensionality of the campaigns, that there was only one ad, or was it a matter of not being able to identify more material to include? That to me actually was the most interesting, I think, as to using that as a baseline for how the rest of the campaigns developed, and that was probably one of the first opportunities for television advertising. So was there anything else in archives, or did you make a selection for just a very limited amount of material?
In which period you said?
In the 50s, the Eisenhower.
Well, I think it was very hard to find ads from that period, you know. I think it's archives start to do it later. That a lot of material. Obviously, in order to get this material, we look a lot from archives, collections, personal people. They really, are been collecting some parts of American history, and then obviously with the time the political parties they give us some of the ads, but this is more recent. And now you could get all the ads on internet. That I think to start in '84 to find material from that period, it was difficult. I think at that time a lot it was radio, and it was a little bit of beginning of television.
I was saying to my friend here that it was really interesting. I thought that we would think that the early ads were funny, because we're more familiar with the more recent ads, that they wouldn't be as funny. But there was a lot of laughter for, say, like the last 10 years. There was also like a lot of groans as well with the Swift boat ads and that kind of stuff. But it was just really interesting that the early ads didn't seem that comical, whereas the more recent ones just really, I don't know if it was funny comedy or funny pain, but...
Well, I think the ads, they've been using all the genre, from the epic to the drama to the comedy. I think it's in a way, if we see who make these ads, the advisors, the political advisors, this is really a backstage that I think is pretty scary, because I think this is what the ads don't say, is how it's been planned and how it's been everything. In a way, the political advice, I think, they're mercenaries. It's people that could do campaign for the Republicans, then go to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and do the campaign there, or to go to Peru for the Democrats. I think it's really like our mercenaries. Like that, in a way, I think it should be sometimes, and we think it as an idea, but never we get the found, is to do a film about the political advisors. And I think it's like a kind of, like when people has an operation and like a surgery from changing the face, I think in a way it's like a kind of political surgery, in a way to how they are changing discourses or how they plan everything.
I was also struck by the fact that as this television advertising evolved over the years, it not only seemed to be much more much more sophistication in terms of the marketing research and the advertising sophistication, but also a lot more media savvy. And it seemed that I wonder what the relationship is to television advertising generally, and the commodification of things, and the kinds of emotional states that are being created on television all the time that have become the hallmark of our culture, really. How different is this political advertising from the rest of the advertising that we are subjected to day after day after day?
Well, I think it's a parallel evolution. And that's how we, in the beginning, it's a 4 lines introduction that say the meaning of this work, it was to try to see the evolution of politics and also the evolution of the commercial ads. And I think at the moment, one of the ads about Humphrey and Nixon, they say, "What Nixon do for me?" This same actor, he was doing an ad for aspirin. Yeah. Like that, it has a kind of always back and forth. And of course, we see like the idea of playing celebrity and using people and endorsement, Clint Eastwood, Paris Hilton. I mean, all this is very much about techniques that I think come up from the advertising in the pure sense.
I'm just going to interject one little detail on that, because a lot of those early ads I've seen, and to me they're very effective. Like, I've seen these tapes, and I remember some of those very, very vividly, more than some of the more slick new ones. But I've been trying to remember the name of the famous ad guy. He was Mr. Ad Man of the 50s. He's the one that did the Eisenhower ad that was so effective, and that was actually done in reverse. The questions and answers were reversed. But it was totally about selling, and it was like a paradigmatic change. Do you remember the name of the guy? You know, he sold us everything, and then he decided to sell us Eisenhower. Yeah. I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was. I know. There were two guys. I don't want to say it because I can't. I've been. Beg your pardon? No. It might have been Bernays. I'm trying to. It's not Ivy. Ivy was before. Anyway, it's parallel. The Eisenhower one is very known. That literally they went. You know, it was the shift with that one. But they've been so powerful, and they really just changed the course of history. Like the little girl one with the atomic bomb, that ran once. Yeah. And then you see the little girl appearing in different guises. There are so many stories, and I'll stop after this, being told. You see quotating her, trying to remember, using her again and again. I saw her in like how many, 7 different guises in those ads.
But it's the same thing with Bush. When it was the patrol,
Yeah.
in there appeared the same image later as reminded as the kind of military role.
Right.
There's something that I observed just personally, and I don't know if others share this, but that the earlier decades, it really seems like we're being sold a product, and then in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 years, you start to see really trailers, and it's like we're being sold a story. And I don't know if that shift has something to do with technology or just pop culture, but it's interesting now, this sort of sometimes fiction, but this trailer-esque story that we're being shown and sold, I think.
There's some in the back there.
I also had the sense that there was growing synchronization between the ads and the polling and the media coverage and the stuff that was being developed, summoning up all kinds of very strong emotions and all, was also playing off an evolving story that was being covered by the media and that was being reflected in polls and so on. And so ads were being put up to address a certain kind of perception that was developed about a candidate, a weakness, a strength. And this was part of the whole media coverage, of which the advertising was a part, and the polling is a part, and the reportage is a part.
Yeah, I think the polls are creating opinion, and I think and it's pretty dangerous that this delivering of these polls in terms of the opinion of people, and I think advertising the same thing. I think I think less people watch television in certain places. I think in a way how they spend money in advertising in certain kind of states, not in another, because some places there are people looking more for internet. Like that, it's been an evolution of that with internet too, like moving from some of the ads to the net in instant television. But still, I will say states like Ohio or Mid-America, I think, is really very much on TV.
And one thing about the polling is a lot of this polling is being paid for by market research. Companies are contributing to the polling company, Gallup or somebody. They're going out to households and they are asking people a lot of questions about products. They're doing marketing research. And then tacked into that interview is a segment about the politics. And we see the politics being reported in a poll, that comes out from Gallup or somebody, but that's just a small part of the marketing research that was being done. And these companies are getting the benefit, they're getting the benefit of all this marketing research. They're doing all this marketing research, getting into people's heads, and it's all part of the same enterprise.
I think one symptomatic thing of this 2012 is the appearance of the the PACs paid by rich people, and most are Republicans, and they are hidden. Yeah. They appear Americans for America or Crossroads or these companies, and this is the symptomatic this year. Is like the money, hidden money, pushing for Republican issues, and most of them this is a new way of how this thing happened, because before the money was coming go for the parties. A lot of money is not go for the parties, it go for independent people, rich people, they support that situation. And we see some of the dirty ads are in that way.
There was one woman who was before.
It's working? Yeah. So the graphic quality changes over time, with technology and other expertise, but I'm amazed at the consistency of the language from the beginning ads to the most recent ones, peace through strength, and just the messages, the language, I think really hasn't changed. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on what else you observe in this editing process about political language in campaigns. And also, to me, the ads that strike the strongest emotional chord are very visual, are the ones with the family around the dinner table and one statistic, the simplicity. I'm wondering if that also reflects our increased visual literacy, that there's a lot less speech and paring down of simpler language to a very strong visual effect for emotional reaction in the most recent ads. An observation more than a question, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts about language.
Do you see a pattern of the language? Do you see a pattern?
I think it
cycles.
It cycles appear, and typologies. You see people in front of the office, the desk. That's Nixon and Goldwater. Then it's other patterns that appear in terms of I think Reagan and Bush in certain kind of euphorical thing, a lot of children around. I think you could analyze, and I think what is important is everybody tries to get these typologies. I think they are there. It's in the way how the difference of this work with the book of Ed Diamond is that Ed Diamond was analyzing all these things. Actually, I recommend the book if somebody wants to. It's a companion to that. It's Ed Diamond Spots. I mean, it's not to try to sell it. The thing is like, I don't know, the last edition, it was 10 years ago. But MIT Press, they put that. I think other books also appear in that direction. But obviously, I think you could see certain kind of typology between Bush father and Bush son. The military aspect is there, is violent, is aggressive, and, that I think is clear there are things and cycles there reappear.
Actually, the one that I saw, what it struck me when it first appeared was I called them the serial commercial trailers, as you were talking about their narratives, and it really appeared with Reagan. They're the feel-good ads. It's Morning in America. We're going to have our cereal, and Ronald Reagan is president. And there are all these daffodils on this hill that, could you really have that many daffodils on one hill? And then, I noticed I don't know whether you edited it that way, but it was the Republicans that used that consistently. It's Morning in America, and it's this old-fashioned America, white America,
But
and
also, I think Ford was.
Ford used Yeah, but that's Republican.
Yeah.
And then
No,
there was another one.
It means it's not start with Reagan.
Oh, it started with Ford, okay. And then it struck me, just in my observation, so I missed that. But then there was another one coming up, and I said, oh, I guess the Democrats are using it because it was about Obama. But then it immediately turned into a negative ad on Obama, so it swished. It was a schizophrenic ad, and it got real intense and negative. But I noticed that the cereal ads were the Republicans.
And of course, this is choices. You know, it's an immense quantity of ads. I mean, we take some we think is representative of the issues, but also representative of the image making. Then how the image making it could bring some kind of issues to how the advertising evolved. Like that, I would say since the last 4 campaigns, I think the quantity of ads is immense.
I just
A lot of
I'm
money.
sorry, you had a, I'm sorry.
And a lot of money invest, of course.
I just wanted to, yeah. I just wanted to follow.
Yeah, can you turn it on?
Yeah, oh, there it is. I just wanted to follow up on something Gail was saying about, at the beginning it seemed like a product, and then to these trailers, this movie idea, this narrative. And I think that's a really interesting thought, and I also think it sort of parallels our own relationship with technology, particularly television and film. Because at the beginning you have a lot of these sort of like single candidates looking directly into the camera, with the metaphor of talking directly to the voter. So you have this almost sort of direct, although mediated communication. And there's a real person talking to a real voter. And then as our relationship with technology gets more complicated and more virtual, it gets pushed away, then it becomes a story that we're being told. And it's more complex. And even toward the end, I loved how you juxtaposed, here's the ad, and then here's the ad commenting on the other ad. So then you don't even have the candidates talking to the people anymore, just like you have all the talking heads on the talk shows interviewing other talk show hosts. Then you have the 2 campaign ads just talking to each other. And so this idea, like the voter and the real physicality of what's going on, it kind of disappears, just like our culture is becoming more digital and more virtual itself. So I
I
thought that
think
was
that's what
really
Scott was
interesting.
alluding to in terms of the polls and how it functions, yeah. And I'll also say, I don't know, maybe those Morning in America ads were used for Democrats too, and it was just the way you edited it, but that's how it appeared there. Yeah, that's-
I just have a simple question, which is, I'm curious as to why, with the 2012 ads, you didn't include the alternative candidates like the Green Party candidate, the Justice Party candidate, and so on.
Well, I think it's include Alexander.
For 2012, did we have we didn't have the Green Party. We did,
No,
previous years you had some alternative, but we have some pretty strong candidates this year. It's been an issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I think it's in a way, I think it was the more significant. I mean, in a way, the advertising is about money. Neither appears, but, it was pretty much not using television because it was against. But we feel it was important to say, other things we think it was not significant. It couldn't be, it's an subjective. It's not an objective. It's nothing we could call objectivity, it's decisions.
I moved, sorry. Follow-up. So will you continue to collect ads and edit? And if so, how will you parse through the hundreds of ads now that you have market research that shows one ad in one community and an entirely different ad in another community, depending on county, on demographics, and just and so many more players in the advertising market? How do you see that change in media and the disparateness of all these markets affecting this work moving forward?
Well, as I said at the beginning, I don't want to go to a questions and answer thing. I think I think all of you could answer that question.
Thank you for coming up out of that there no power zone and be with us tonight. As I watch this thing and I think about the horse and buggy, now we're into the internet, magazines are failing and newspapers are failing. Is TV going to fail? What will be next on? How are these messages going to get out to us? We're all crazy now hearing them. We don't want to hear them anymore. We'd rather tune into the sports program or whatever. I have no idea what kind of technology will take over. Maybe you do.
Well, I think it's the reality.
Okay, let's have this. I think we'll just, if there's somebody else with a question, we'll have a few more and then we'll end.
I think we...
Okay,
Two points. You had talked about looking at product and technology, but I think in the way in which you've created the film, the beginning is really content, because the Eisenhower elections, from my perspective, were really about content, and they weren't so much about the manipulation of the candidate. It was really presenting of the point of view of the candidate for the voter to make an informed decision. It was perhaps the most simple but the most direct kind of a plea for vote. And the other comment that I wanted to make, if you really want to look at the way in which the media manipulated elections, go back to the election of 1948. And just remember the image of Harry Truman holding up the newspaper of the New York Post, saying Dewey wins. And I think that's a fairly poignant statement about the role, very early role in contemporary election history of the media, and how the media almost swung an election, but the population, the populace, voted and was counter to the media. So just two points for discussion or comment.
So maybe, I don't even want to wrap it up, you said?
No,
Yeah.
but the thing is...
I will say go vote. We need a go vote moment, maybe.
Yeah, 573
500,
votes,
please.
no?
Okay, last question here.
It's important to vote.
I just want to say I appreciate the video. It was amazing. And I also connected with the little girl with the flowers. That was Johnson, November 3rd, 1963, for the Medicare plan. I believe the first video was that. And then in 1972, it was the same woman with the child, the planes flying over her. And I actually took notes. It was the ending of that speech was planes bomb children. Planes bomb children. It said right at the end of that. That was in 1972. Sorry.
Yeah, it was just there was some auditory. So you were saying you really related to some of those early Johnson ads?
Correct. Yeah. With the
figure?
child. Yeah, and I noticed it again with the same woman in 1972. And it said it was the woman walking with the child, and she said, and the child says like, "Mom, planes bomb children," which was in your video, and that really like connected with me. And that was kind of, I think, something that you were saying earlier. And I also had a comment about the black and white phones with Nixon. I thought it represented race, in a sense. I kind of felt that he had the black and the white phone for his election, part of the film. I felt something maybe with race.
Well, I think there are a
Possibly.
lot of ways to interpret that. I think race runs through all these ads. The
Obviously,
phones,
yeah. Like the black and the white, just kind of the insinuation of it, and having them so separated on the side of the tables. Like I saw it in a kind of like an art sense.
Well, going back to the typologies, is about the appearance of certain enemy, Russian as an enemy, and then the Middle East, all the Arab countries, in the and this year China. They start to building a China enemy, and we used the last one because I think it was 2030, like a kind of science fiction. But in both campaigns, using China as an important foreign politics.
It's almost as if it's a defense mechanism to use. It's almost like they're trying to sell us everything. You know, in particular, you got to look at it individually as well, because I'm 26 years old. I can't even get health insurance. I work more than 40 hours a week. You know, don't get in trouble, nothing. It's about, it's all propaganda, and I agree with you. The whole thing is just all sales. It's all selling to the people, and it's not working. It's either one way or the other. And it's always just those two edges, and why can't just the people that want everything, everybody here probably wants Green Party, wants something good, wants something for everybody. And it's just, why can't it happen? It's just sad. And it needs to happen, and it's going to happen. And I believe it's going to. So as long as we fight for it, it's going to happen, but we don't see the greatness, and I don't know, it's hard.
The problem is it works, negative ads work.
Well, I think that this is,
we are under this light.
yeah, the glaring light. Well, I think a lot of great ideas were raised. I thought this was a magnificent piece. I found it riveting. However imperfect the system may be, I do think it is important to vote. And I do think politics, however manipulative this is, politics is an alternative to war and violence, however imperfect it may be. So I think that voting, this was a kind of pre-voting moment, and I don't know, I would just encourage everybody to vote and thank everybody for coming, and really thank you for the sanctuary for just, again, being a sanctuary, and Muntadas, thank you for coming.
Well, actually, it will be my...
letting Brenda speak, I'm sorry.
It will be the November 6th, it will be the first time I will vote.
Oh, wow.